Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan ki,
Jai.
Vrindavan Dham ki, Navadvip Mayapur Dham ki,
Jai.
Vidam ki,
Jai.
Ganga Mai Yamuna Mai ki,
Jai.
Tulsi Devi ki,
Jai.
Shri Ram Sankirtan ki,
Jai.
Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki,
Jai.
Gaura Premanande,
Hari Bol.
praise the assembled devotees,
Hare
all
Krishna.
glories to the assembled devotees,
Hare Krishna.
praise the assembled devotees,
Hare
all glories to the lotus feet of Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Chatyate Shatarine. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirajit Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Before reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, one should first offer one's respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human beings, unto the goddess of learning, Mother Saraswati, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart becomes almost completely destroyed, and devotional service becomes established within one's heart as an irrevocable fact. Mother Shobha Radhe, is it okay if I share the screen?
Yes, Prabhu, sure.
I'm connected from this directly from my laptop to this screen
Yes.
back of me, and
Yes.
that way I can enlarge it to make it.
Sure.
Just bear with me for a second. Can you all see that online?
No. We see a line only.
Okay, give it a second. How about now?
No, we can't see, Prabhu.
No, no.
Let's see. Okay, hold on. Let me stop sharing. Let me try one more time. If not, I'll have to give it back to you, Mother Shobha Radhe.
Once I'm ready, so.
Yeah. How is that?
Now it's good.
You can see? All right. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 4, Text number 6.
You need to go up.
Everybody there?
Yeah.
Puya eva vashitsami Bhagavan Atma Mayaya
Bhagavan Atma Mayaya
Yatedam Srijate Vishvam
Yathedam Srijate Vishwam
Durvibhavayam
Bhavyam.
Ishware
Durvibhavyam Adishwarai
Puya eva vishishami
Bhuya eva vivitsami
Bhagavan Atma Mayaya
Bhagavan Atma Mayaya
Yathedam Srijate Vishvam
Yathedam Srijate Vishwam
Durvibhavyayam Adi Ishware
Durvibhavyam
Durvibhavyam
Adishvarai
Adishvarai
Ya eva vashitsami
Bhuya eva vivitsami
Vivitsami
Bhagavan Atma Mayaya
Bhagavan
Atmamayaya
Atmamayaya
Idam Srijate Vishvam
Yatedam Srijate
Yatedam
Vishwam
Durvibhavayam Adi Ishware.
Durvibhavyam
Durvibhavyam
Adishvarai.
Adishvarai.
Okay, we'll start with the devotees in the temple room and then we'll go to the devotees online. Huya eva vavitsami Bhagavan Atma Mayaya Yatedam Srijate Vishvam Durvibhavayam Adishware. Huya eva vavitsami Bhagavan Atma Mayaya Yatedam Srijate Vishvam Durvibhavyayam Adishware. Huya eva vavitsami Bhagavan Atma Mayaya Yatedam Srijate Vishvam Durvibhavayam Adishware. Okay, devotees on Zoom.
Bhuhyayeva Vivitsami Bhagavan Atmamayaya Yatedam Srijate Vishwam Durvibhavyam Adishvara. Adishvarai.
Bhuya eva vivitsami Bhagavan Atmamayaya Yatedam Srijate Vishwam Durvibhavyam Adi Ishvarai.
Hare Krishna. Bhuya eva vitsami Bhagavan Atmamayaya Yatedam Srijate Vishwam Durvibhavyam Adishwarai.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll go to the synonyms. Bhuya. Again. Eva. Also. Vivitsami. I wish to learn. Bhagavan. The personality of Godhead. Atma. Personal. Mayaya. By the energies. Yata. As. Idam. This phenomenal world. Srijate. Does create. Vishvam. Universe. Durvibhavayam. Inconceivable. Adi Ishware. By the great demigods. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. I beg to know from you how the personality of Godhead, by His personal energies, create these phenomenal universes as they are, which are inconceivable even to the great demigods. This is Maharaj Parikshit speaking. to Sukadeva Goswami. This is a long purport, and I'm going to stop midway through. It's almost like two different, it could be like, there's so much packed into this. So I'll stop midway through and then we'll finish the purport after that, because it takes a different direction. In every inquisitive mind, the important question of creation of the phenomenal world arises. And therefore, a personality like Maharaj Parikshit, who was to know all the activities of the Lord from his spiritual master, such an inquiry is not uncommon. For every unknown thing, we have to learn and inquire from a learned personality. The question of creation is also one of such inquiries, to be made to the right person. The spiritual master, therefore, must be one who is Sarvagya, as stated herein before in connection with Shukadeva Goswami. Thus, all inquiries on God, which are unknown to the disciple, may be made from a qualified spiritual master. And here, the practical example is set by Maharaj Parikshit. It was, however, already known to Maharaj Parikshit that everything we see is born out of the energy of the Lord. As we have learned in the very beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, Jamadi Asya Yataha. So Maharaj Parikshit wanted to know the process of creation. The origin of creation was known to him. Otherwise, he would not have inquired how the personality of Godhead, by his different energies, creates this phenomenal world. The common man also knows that the creation is made by some creator and is not created automatically. We have no experience in the practical world that a thing is created automatically. Foolish people say that the creative energy is independent and acts automatically, as electrical energy works. But the intelligent man knows that even the electrical energy is generated by an expert engineer in the localized powerhouse. And thus the energy is distributed everywhere under the resident engineer's supervision. The Lord's supervision in connection with creation is mentioned even in Bhagavad Gita 9:10. And it is clearly said there that material energy is a manifestation of one of the many such energies of the Supreme. Parasya Shaktir Vividaiva Shruyate. An inexperienced boy may be struck with wonder by seeing the impersonal actions of electronics or many other wonderful things conducted by electrical energy. But an experienced man knows that behind all the action is a living man who creates such energy. Similarly, the so-called scholars and philosophers of the world may, by mental speculation, present so many utopian theories about the impersonal creation of the universe. But an intelligent devotee of the Lord, by studying the Bhagavad Gita, can know that behind the creation is the hand of the Supreme Lord. Just as the generating electrical powerhouse, there is a resident engineer. The research scholar finds out the cause and effect of everything. But the research scholars, as great as Brahma, Shiva, Indra, and many other demigods, are sometimes bewildered by seeing the wonderful creative energy of the Lord. So what to speak of the tiny mundane scholars dealing in petty things? As there are differences in the living conditions of the planets, of the universes. And as one planet is superior to others, the brains of the living entities in those respective planets are also of different categorical values. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, one can compare the long duration of life of the inhabitants of Brahma's planet, which is inconceivable to the inhabitants of the planet Earth. To the categorical value of the brain of Brahmaji, also inconceivable to the great scientists of this planet. And with such high brain power, even Brahmaji has described in his Samhita 5.1 as follows. You can all chant this together. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarvakara Nakaranam. There are many great personalities possessing the qualities of Bhagavan, but Krishna is the supreme because none can excel him. He is the supreme person, and his body is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. He is the primeval Lord Govinda and the cause of all causes. Brahmaji admits Lord Krishna is the supreme cause of all causes. But persons with tiny brains within the petty planet, Earth, think of the Lord as one of them. Thus, when the Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita that he, Lord Krishna, is the all in all, the speculative philosophers and the mundane wranglers deride him. And the Lord regretfully says, you can all chant this together if you like. Avajannanti mamura manushim tanum astritam param bhavam ajanato mama bhuta maheshwaram. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature and my supreme dominion over all that be. Bhagavad Gita 9:11. Brahma and Shiva, and what to speak of the other demigods, are bhutas, or powerful created demigods who manage universal affairs. Much like ministers appointed by a king. The ministers may be Ishwaras, or controllers. But the Supreme Lord is Maheshwara, or the creator of the controllers. Persons with a poor fund of knowledge do not know this, and therefore they have the audacity to deride him because he comes before us by his causeless mercy occasionally as a human being. The Lord is not like a human being. He is Satchidananda Vigraha, or the absolute personality of Godhead. And there is no difference between his body and his soul. He is both the power and the powerful. So the purport continues, and we'll read it, the rest of it in just a moment. I wanted to pause there because there was a lot to digest. Before I begin, I'd like to offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master. Om Agyanatimarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmalayatam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. So, Maharaj Parikshit is inquiring from Shukadev Goswami he wants to know about the creation of this world. And he says, this world is incomprehensible, inconceivable, even to the greatest of the demigods. And he says, I want to know about, let's go back and read the translation real quick to remember my place. I beg to know from you how the personality of Godhead, by his personal energies, creates this phenomenal universes as they are, which are inconceivable even to the greatest the great demigods. So first thing is that he's giving acknowledgement that this creation is part of the energies of the personality of Godhead. So he was trying to understand, how is this world created? And that is a question that most people have. They want to know, how did this all come to be? Even from a young child. It just takes them a little bit until they get into maybe, elementary school. When they just start looking around, they start wondering, how did this all come to be? You're my parent, okay, I came from you, but how did this whole entire world come to be? And how is it like it is right now? I'm sure we've all had this question at least once or many times within our lives. We stare up at the stars at night and just think how vast this world is. What is the purpose and how did it all come to be? Is there a source to it all? Now, Maharaj Parikshit understood that there is a source, and he just wants to understand now the glory of that source, how that source operates, how powerful that source is. He wants to understand how the energies of the Lord manifest in the creation of this world. Take that into the modern science, compare that to the modern scientific approach to understanding creation. And Srila Prabhupada is speaking about that in this purport, when he says uninformed people or uneducated people. They're trying to understand the energy, how the energy works, without acknowledging that there is a source of that energy, or the energetic. You say there's the Shakti and the Shakti Mam. Shakti Mam is Krishna, the source of all Shakti. And then there's the Shakti itself, which is the energy. The energy is never independent from the source of the energy. It is created by the source and is also manipulated or used or directed by the source. So the energy is never independent. So therefore, to try to explain the universe by just trying to understand the energy without approaching the source of the energy is an impossible task. The reason it is impossible is because we're trying to understand something that is nearly infinite with our finite brain. The vastness of this universe, which goes beyond all human ability to measure. We measure in things called light years, which is the speed at which light travels over the course of a year. And the speed of light travels like that. It's inconceivable to our minds of how it happens. But we create some type of metric so that we can wrap around our mind around something that is beyond our comprehension. But yet within our limited minds, we try to understand how this energy is working. There's a theory, and it's prominent. It's called the Big Bang Theory. Now, this theory's had, it's only about 100 years old, and it's the modern day explanation of how the universe came to be. It started from an infinitely dense and hot point that was no more than like the tip of a pencil, but it was so compact that it eventually erupted and exploded. And within seconds of this explosion, there was this inflation of the universe, and it distributed all this heat and energy throughout the universe, and it started to expand in all directions. There were masses and particles created from such an explosion, but the heat was so intense that nothing could really come together. It was just these electrons and probes. And I don't know the whole science. I'm not going to try to imitate it, but I understand it enough to say that basically over time, there was a cooling off period and a condensation where the particles then started coming together as pieces of matter. And then over the course of 14 billion years, they call this a primordial soup. And within that primordial soup were the building blocks of, or the foundation of life. So not only were there particles of matter that joined, but there was also things like amino acids and proteins that joined together. And that's stable, that became the beginning of life. And then that gradually they perform more complex forms of matter and more complex forms of life to the point of where you have today. So it's a huge jump, and therefore they call it a theory because it's not proven. And that theories had taken on many other, what do you call it? The forms, you know, a theory gets developed. So they try to prove it. They realize, okay, well, this doesn't really calculate out, or this doesn't really make sense. So they add another twist to it. And then they keep adding to it again. This is not complete knowledge. The imperfect senses will make an imperfect determination. If the instruments we use to calculate is imperfect, the answer that we get is going to also be imperfect. If the scale we use to measure something is not calibrated, the result of that weight is not going to be accurate. If our calculator, you know, starts at the number, doesn't start at 0 when we turn it on, and we start putting in numbers, the answer we get from it will not be the correct answer. So in the same way, our estimation of this universe, which is so much greater than the weighing of a scale or a calculator, which is within our human capacity, is being made. And the danger is that this is actually what we are taught in school. We are taught that this is actually the way that the universe was created. And in a very convincing way. You know, it's not that they don't have their argument down in a very logical, convincing way. It just defies the point from the very beginning that you have imperfect senses and you're trying to calculate something that is infinite beyond your capacity. The point is made here that our capacity is so much smaller than Lord Brahma's capacity. One day for us is, you know, 4,300,000,000,000,000,000 days of Lord Brahma. Wow. Or you know, one day of his is, you know, 4.32 billion years of his. Our 4.3 billion years is one day for him. And Srila Prabhupada is saying, you can extrapolate that out to the level of consciousness and the capacity of intellect. So it is that much more magnification of understanding of how things are. And at the dawn of creation, Lord Brahma said, let me figure out, just like we do, what is the source of everything? What is how is things created? And he couldn't figure it out. So therefore, what is our capacity to do so? There's the inductive approach and the deductive approach, ascending and descending. What is recommended is that we receive knowledge in a descending way, in line of the parampara coming directly from Krishna to Lord Brahma to his disciples, all the way through in a chain of disciplic succession. The inductive reasoning, or the ascending process of knowledge, is trial and error. Does this work? Does this make sense? And then you test the theory. The theory, test out. Then you draw some conclusion. And then later, if that conclusion is proven to be over time more developed and inaccurate, then you refine it and do it again. It's inconclusive. Ravinda Prabhu used to say, scientists, they would say, we used to think, but now we know. And then you fast forward 30 years and they say, well, we used to think and now we know. And you fast forward again 30 years, we used to think, but now we know. So it's a changing science. It's not complete. And that is the point Srila Prabhupada here is trying to make. I'd like to continue reading in the purport. So it takes a twist in a very nice way. Maharaj Parikshit did not ask his spiritual master, Shukadev Goswami, to narrate Lord Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. He wanted to hear first about the creation of the Lord. Shukadev Goswami did not say that the king should hear about the direct transcendental pastimes of the Lord. The time was very short, and naturally Shukadev Goswami could have gone directly to the 10th canto to make a shortcut of the whole thing, as generally done by professional reciters. But neither the king nor the great speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam jumped up like the organizers of the Bhagavatam. Both of them proceeded systematically so that both future readers and hearers might take lessons from the example of the procedure of reciting Srimad Bhagavatam. Those who are under the control of the external energy of the Lord, or in other words, those who are in the material world, must first of all know how the external energy of the Lord is working under the direction of the Supreme Personality. And afterwards, one may try to enter into the activities of his internal energy. The mundaners are mostly worshippers of Durga Devi, the external energy of Krishna. But they do not know that Durga Devi is but the shadow energy of the Lord. Behind her astonishing display of material workings is the direction of the Lord, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 9:10. The Brahma Samhita affirms Durga Shakti is working by the direction of Govinda, and without his sanction, the powerful Durga Shakti cannot move even a blade of grass. Therefore, the neophyte devotee, instead of jumping at once to the platform of transcendental pastimes presented in the internal energy of the Lord, Jai Shishi Gaurnitai ki Jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani ki Jai, Shishi Radha Sharad Bihari ki Jai. I'll start that sentence over again. Therefore, the neophyte devotee, instead of jumping at once to the platform of the transcendental pastimes presented by the internal energy of the Lord, may know how great the Supreme Lord is by inquiring about the process of his creative energy. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita also, descriptions of the creative energy and the Lord's hand in it are explained. And the author of the Chaitanya Charitamrita has warned the neophyte devotees to be seriously on guard against the pitfalls of neglecting knowledge about Krishna in regards to how great he is. Only when one knows Lord Krishna's greatness can one firmly put one's unflinching faith in him. Otherwise, like the common man, even the great leaders of men will mistake Lord Krishna for one of the many demigods, or a historical personality, or a myth only. The transcendental pastimes of the Lord in Vrindavan, or even at Dwarka, are relishable for persons who have already qualified themselves in advanced spiritual techniques. And the common man may be able to attend such a plane by the gradual process of service and inquiries, as well as see in the behavior of Maharaj Parikshit. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. So this second part of the purport, the emphasis is being given on the fact that Maharaj Parikshit started off of the topics of the Bhagavatam with creation. Instead of going directly to the 10th canto, which is exclusively about the pastimes of Krishna and his dealings with his devotees in Vrindavan, Dwarka, and his travels between the two. And the reason for this is because in order to appreciate those pastimes, one has to develop strong faith and knowledge about the person that they're reading about. Otherwise, when we hear about Krishna's pastimes, we'll just think, oh, this is impossible. This must be an exaggeration. Maybe it's mythology, but maybe there's a point behind the mythology. So I'll accept the moral of the story, but understand that perhaps it's just all about, a big exaggeration. And then I have the faith in order to understand and have the conviction to understand that actually Krishna, nothing is impossible for him. So there's a story in this regard. Narada Muni, one day in his travels, he came across the Brahmin. And the Brahmin said to the great sage, he said, "Sage, where are you headed?" He says, "I'm headed to Vaikuntha to see Lord Vishnu." And he says, "Oh, when you see Lord Narayan, please ask him, offer my respects to him, and ask him, when will it become when I become liberated from this world?" And he said, "Yes, I will do so." And he continued on his way. And as he was traveling, he also passed a cobbler. He was sitting underneath a banyan tree working on some shoes. And that cobbler said, "Great sage, where are you going?" He says, "I'm going to see my great Lord Narayan in Vaikuntha." He says, "Offer my respectful obeisances to him. And please ask him, when will I be freed from the suffering of this material world and return to his darshan?" He says, "Yes, I will do so." And off he went, chanting the holy names. After he finished his darshan with Lord Vishnu, Narada Muni, he inquired. He says, "There were two people that inquired who asked me to offer you their respects, and they both had the same question. They said, when will they be able to see you and return to your lotus feet?" He says, "Tell the Brahmin that it will be many, many, many lifetimes before he has the opportunity to come and see me." Narada Muni, a bit surprised. Brahmin's the head of society, head of the religious order. And then he said, "But the cobbler will see me very soon." And he says, "And if they happen to ask, what was the Lord doing when you were asking this question, you tell them that I was threading the elephant through an eye of a needle." Narada Muni said, "Okay." Off he went. And as he returned back to the earthly planet, he came across the Brahmin. The Brahmin said, what is the answer? What is the result? What happened?" He says, "Well, I put your question before Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu said, there will be many, many lifetimes before you are qualified to return back to him." He said, he's bewildered, all the sacrifice, all the reading of scriptures, doing all the pujas. He says, "And what was the Lord doing? What was he doing when you were asking him this?" He says, "Interestingly, you would ask. He was threading the elephant through an eye of a needle." And the Brahmin's reaction was, "Nice story. Very good story. What was he really doing?" He was threading the elephant through an eye of a needle. Great sage, you are full of great stories and myths. Thank you very much. Namaskar. Please be on your way. I'll go back to my activities. He had no faith. And now, a little time later, he comes across the cobbler. And the cobbler asked the same question. He says, did you ask my question? How long will it be? He says, yes, it'll be a very short time. He says, praise the Almighty Krishna. And he says, do you want to know what he was doing while we were talking? He says, yes, please tell me. What was my Lord doing? And Narada Muni says he was threading an elephant through the eye of a needle. And he says, that is so wonderful. The inconceivable energy of the Lord just always blows my mind. Narada Muni says, I would like to understand your faith. I would like to understand. You don't find this impossible? Why? Tell me about this. And the cobbler says, I see it every day. I'm sitting here underneath this banyan tree, and there's fruits that are created from this banyan tree. And in each one of these fruits lies a seed. And within that seed lies this big banyan tree. So if the Lord can put this big banyan tree, which extends for blocks and blocks, it's a huge tree, if you've seen it, just roots extending everywhere, and it just keeps growing and growing. And if he can fit all of that inside a little seed, certainly he can thread the elephant through an eye of a needle. So without knowledge of Krishna, without understanding the purpose of this creation, that Krishna is the seed of existence, that he is the source of all energies, and that we are under his direction all times. Although these pastimes of Krishna may be endearing and warming to our heart, they will not be relished with full faith the way that the advanced sages and pure devotees are able to relish them. You may question, well, the gopis of Vrindavan, they were never really interested in these types of topics. They were just wanting to know about Krishna and his welfare, how to serve him better. And that is true. Srila Prabhupada alludes to this in the purport. They were free from all material attachments. They were purely liberated souls. However, for us, we are conditioned souls. So therefore, we have to understand how the Lord works his energy that we are currently embedded in. Mamaivam sam jiva loke, jiva bhuta sanatana, manakshastrani indriyani, prakriti shtani karshati. The living entities of this world are my eternal fragmental parts and parcels. But due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. We have to understand how the living entity is different than this external energy of the Lord. In order to do that, we have to understand components of the external energy and how it influences. We call it Maya, how it influences us into illusion. Think that we're something that we're not. And without this depth of understanding, it is not recommended to jump directly into Krishna's pastimes. We may get glimpses of them, little drops of nectar, but our ability to relish them will not be there. And therefore, Maharaj Parikshit is asking from the very beginning, let's start out with the creation. Let's understand how the Lord's energies, these inconceivable energies, which bewilder even the greatest demigods, how they work. Please, in the line of parampara, please pass it down to me. And that is how we are to also systematically hear the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam is explained that they are also different parts of the body of the Lord. Um, 1 second here. This is from the Padma Purana. And this is also an indication of how we should take darshan of the Lord. When we start and we look at Krishna, we are to start at the lotus feet, because the lotus feet are the shelter. The lotus feet give us the shade from the intensity of Maya. And lotus feet give us protection. Lotus feet of the spiritual master are the only by which to attain pure devotional service to Krishna. So the first two cantos, which deal with the creation, are compared to the lotus feet of Krishna. The third and fourth cantos are compared to his thighs, as our eyes gradually move up at the body of Krishna. The third and fourth canto are his thighs. So the feet are the foundation, and then we raise up, keep going up. The fifth canto is his navel. The sixth canto is his chest. Seventh and eighth cantos are his arms. The ninth canto is his throat. And the 10th canto is his beautiful lotus face. The 11th canto is his forehead. And the 12th canto is the top of his head. So in the same way, we're recommended to not just look at the face of the Lord, but look at his lotus feet, meditate on his lotus feet, and then gradually move our eyes up the body. The same way we are to approach Srimad Bhagavatam. When we arrive, we'll arrive protected in disciplic succession, but we'll also be protected with transcendental knowledge, which is devotional service. And that knowledge will awaken faith and understanding about Krishna, so that when we meet Krishna in the 10th canto, we will not think that, oh, this is just exaggeration or mythology. We won't be like the Brahmin. I'll just say stories, stories, stories. Externally, we don't think that way, but internally, we may still have our doubts. And that's why this Maharaj Parikshit is recommending and inquiring from Sukadeva Goswami, tell me from the beginning. He only had 7 days. He could have said, those 7 days exclusively, just give me Krishna, Katha in land of Vrindavan. But for our benefit, he wanted to go through and teach us systematically how to approach Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, thank you all for your attention. If you have any questions or comments or reflections on today's verse? All right, Gupta Prabhu. We'll take it from inside the temple, and then we'll go to online.
I haven't heard the Big Bang Theory since I was a child. Kid, why? Like, oh, make up very much. And I can feel people.
Yeah, just so people online that you may not have been able to hear Maury Gupta Prabhu's reflection on this, is that the Big Bang Theory, when you really get into it, it's quite ludicrous. You know, it's really far out, almost to the point where it's unbelievable in and of itself. Something that is supposed to be a reason for how this came to be, this world came to be. When you look at all the components of it, it's just, you know, it's almost, it's unbelievable, you know. So, and the point that Srila Prabhupada makes in the purport, which we always have to reflect back to, is all our experience in this material world is that everything that we see has a creator. We would never say there's a computer right here. It just kind of manifested and came to be. There's a source of that energy. This is the result of that energy, but the energy and the source are always connected. You can't just evaluate the energy in and of itself without looking at the source. So everything we have, a car, the body itself, just look at the intricacies of the body. If you dissect the eye and just see how the eye works, the shape of an eye, and how like it goes through this little hole, and then it's a reflection in the back of that eye that reflects actually what you're seeing. You can see the spectrum of colors. You know, and you see like, okay, everything has to have a creation. Would we ever believe that if you just took a bunch of sand and brick and dirt and metal and a paint can, and we just exploded it, it would just come and form a building? You know, it would just fall into place and come together? We would never think of such a thing. Everything has to have a creator, an intelligence behind it. And Lord Krishna is the supreme creator. He's the original cause of all causes. So there is one being that doesn't have a cause, and that is Krishna. Krishna is beyond logic and reason. He is the source. He's the Sarva Karana Karanam, as Lord Brahma described. But every other part of creation that springs from Lord Krishna has a cause. That's what makes him the Supreme Personality of God. Anybody online?
Yes, Prabhu. First, I just was thinking about when you had decided to switch from the, to come back to the first canto after, when I started joining the classes, it was at the 10th canto. And I remember we were going full speed. And then when you decided to come back to the first canto, it was like, oh my goodness. But today I'm just so, I have been grateful all along, but today I absolutely understand why that is so important, and what a wonderful decision you made at that time to come back to the first canto. The other thing I was thinking about is Ravindra Swarup Prabhu's comment about how scientists always say, we thought so, but now we know. And that's exactly how things are always going. If 500-600 years ago, people had said, oh, there will be these instruments flying in the air and people will be carried from one place to another, crossing oceans, they would have laughed it off and said, no, not possible. And today, it's absolutely possible. So what we think today will not be the case for science, in another 100-200 years. So very nicely explained. Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Can you, you said all the cantos, parts of the Lord. So can you just repeat that, please?
Sure. Yeah, Canto 1 and Canto 2 are Krishna's lotus feet. This is from the Padma Purana. The third and fourth cantos are his thighs. The fifth canto is his navel. The sixth canto is his chest. The seventh and eighth cantos are his arms. The ninth canto is his throat. And the 10th canto is his beautiful lotus face. The 11th canto is his forehead. And the 12th canto is the top of his head.
10th is face and 11th is what?
The 11th is his forehead,
Uh-huh.
and the 12th canto is the crown of the head.
Back. See, I just got before that all the lokas, Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatala lokas, So Atala said waist, Vitala said thighs, Sutala said knees, Talatala is shanks, Mahatala anklets, and Rasatala upper portion of the feet, and Patala soles of the feet. So that is Virat Rupa I had this thing. So that's why I'm curious to know this also. Thank you very much.
I'm just curious, have you all heard this before, that when we take darshan of Krishna, that we start at Krishna's feet?
From feet and up. Yeah.
Go directly to his
Yeah, I always see the lotus feet only.
And when you do that, you actually see, especially our beautiful Shri Shri Radhashard Bihari, the lotus feet are this soft pinkish color, there's the tenderness of Krishna's lotus feet and just how much shelter they give. And when we talk about the feet, oftentimes we talk about it's what gives us protection, gives us understandings. Like I mentioned before, the lotus feet of our spiritual master. We serve the feet of the spiritual master, following in the footsteps of the spiritual master. There's an aspect of taking shelter of the feet. And very nicely that's established as the first and second canto, which is the creation. And so we can understand that this idea of creation, even though it may not be where our minds want to go, it's actually what is required for our safety in spiritual life. Now, I will mention that Srila Prabhupada did give us the Krishna book, which is a glimpse or the summary of the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, because he wasn't sure, as he was writing the Srimad Bhagavatam, if he would, by the time he got to the 10th canto, if he would be able to finish it. And sure enough, he departed this world before completing the 10th canto. But that Krishna book, when you read it, it is full of deep philosophy. So that at no point is one ever not know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, this is the first time I just see, when I have the darshan of the deities, I always see from the lotus feet and up. But I just didn't know that about the book. These chapters will say like that, I just first time I'm hearing it. So
I can send it to you.
thank you. Thank you very much. Because I came to know this thing, Atala, Vitala, Sutala, these things, I realized when I was listening to Shyam Kumar Prabhu's class, he just mentioned. So I just note down that thing. Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Yeah, we're at 9 o'clock. We can end here. Thank you all for your attention.
Thank you.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai. Patitana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namah.